Hello everyone, my name is Sharzad Green and I'm a pharmacist. In my previous video, I discussed adrenal fatigue syndrome, and today I'm going to talk to you about the effect of adrenal fatigue syndrome and your cortisol on your weight. So as we said previously, adrenal fatigue syndrome is a very common problem in today's society. Everybody is under a lot of stress and we just don't take enough time to de-stress and take good care of our bodies. In addition to that, our eating habits are not exactly the best. So how does that all affect our weight? Well, it affects it in multiple ways, but today I'm going to talk to you about the effect of cortisol specifically on our weight. So as I said before, when a person wakes up in the morning, he or she usually has the most amount of cortisol. And as the day goes on, you use up your cortisol, and eventually by the end of the day when you go to bed, you have the least amount of cortisol in your body. During the night, your adrenal glands rest and they don't produce as much cortisol. So they rest up and they allow you to sleep, and then in the morning you wake up with the highest amount of cortisol, because around 4 a.m. the adrenal glands wake up and start producing this wonderful hormone for you. And by 8 o'clock in the morning, usually you are at your peak. The pattern that I just described is for a healthy person with healthy adrenal glands. But in reality, what I see in most of my patients is that they usually wake up with a low amount of cortisol in the morning. And as the day goes on, because they crash, they have to constantly feed themselves with something that's going to raise their cortisol level. So let's say the person starts their day at 7 o'clock and then they drink a cup of coffee, so that caffeine gives them a boost of cortisol just temporarily, and then a couple of hours later they crash. And at that time, what happens is the person usually resorts to something maybe sweet, maybe a candy bar, and that gives them a boost, and again they crash. Now throughout the day they're also dealing with stressful situations. So if they get a phone call that's stressful, or if they're at work and they're dealing with a stressful situation, or in general they're worried about life and the problems that they're having, then that alone also keeps giving these tiny boosts of cortisol to them. And what happens is at the end of the day, when they're ready to go to sleep, they look back and they've lived a yo-yo pattern of the cortisol going up and down, up and down. And when they go to sleep, the adrenal glands tend to repeat that up and down pattern. So what happens is, if their cortisol is going up because it's on the upswing of things right now, they have to wait until the cortisol comes down. They fall asleep, and then as soon as the cortisol goes up, they wake up and they don't know why oftentimes, so they have to wait until the cortisol drops low enough so they can fall asleep again. So this could happen multiple times in a day or at night. And during the night, every time that the cortisol goes up when you're not supposed to have a high level of cortisol, that tends to affect your metabolism and your weight. Once the cortisol drops low enough, they fall asleep, only for the pattern to repeat again. And every time this cortisol level goes up in the middle of the night when you're not supposed to have high cortisol, imagine it putting a layer of fat around your body, especially in the midsection. So that's why we see so many people saying that when they're stressed out, it appears that they actually start putting on weight. Now that's part of it, the cortisol is part of it, and then the other part of it, of course, is the eating habits that we usually pick up when we're stressed out. So you may not be able to pay enough attention to what goes in your mouth because you're too busy taking care of situations and addressing stressful events in your life. So that could definitely affect your weight too. In addition to that, when you're having a very stressful life, you may not have enough time for regular exercise, which could also affect your weight. Now, if you want to check your cortisol level and see if your weight gain is actually due to adrenal fatigue syndrome, as you know, there are saliva tests that can be obtained through your healthcare provider. And basically what we do is we measure your cortisol level in the morning, at noon, late in the afternoon, and then at bedtime. And that'll give us an indication of what your adrenal glands do during the day. So once we know the pattern of your cortisol during the day, it helps us figure out what happens at night. And therefore we can start treating it. For further information, you can watch my previous video on adrenal fatigue syndrome, or you can reach me at azhormonehelpers@hotmail.com. And until next time, be well.